Who are the greatest Arizona Wildcats that were never Arizona Wildcats?
Welcome on in, guys, to the AZ Wildcats Podcast. I'm your host, Damon Fairall. I am with my main man, as always, Kevin, MF, and Thomas. And we are here in downtown Phoenix at PHNX HQ2, ready to give you all the news and notes regarding Arizona Wildcats athletics. As you already know, follow us at PHNX_Wildcats. Leave a like on this video. Kevin, we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about the greatest what-if recruits in Arizona Wildcats history, and there are some juicy names on there, my guy. But before we get started, how's life? How are we living? How's your what is it, a Wednesday? How's your Wednesday treating you?
It's, I've had better Wednesdays. Dealing with utility companies is kind of a crazy thing, especially like when they're related to the city and there's just red tape everywhere, and you're like, you go in and they're like, hey, you need this document, and you bring in that document, and then they're like, hey, wait, actually you need this document. That's all good, but we also have this one that you need. And you're like, oh yeah, you didn't tell me that, I'll go get it. And then you go get it, and they're like, well, everything's good, but because of this document you need the other document. And it's just a cycle of that, and I'm going through that right now. But life is good because you and I were going back through all these different recruiting classes, and it's a nice little, rewind into the past of what could have been and what is.
So many Heat legends I'm seeing on these. Like every time I'm just scrolling through, I'm like, oh look, it's KZ Okpala. Like it's just the most random Miami Heat players I've ever seen that really catch my eye. But also a lot of guys that were almost Arizona Wildcats that almost committed, mostly under Sean Miller, because that's mostly when we have the resources and tools and from just a social media standpoint and whatnot, the information has been flowing a lot more in the Sean Miller years than it did in, say, the Lute Olson years, for example. But we do have some ones from the Lute Olson time as well, also some baseball as well. But gonna be a fun conversation to dive into. Kevin, I see you have your W shirt on today. I did want to just bring this up off the top. Caitlin Clark disaster class last night on my national television.
Did you happen to bet on that game, Damon?
I did happen to bet on Caitlin Clark. I happened to say yesterday on this fine program that 16.5 points might have been the freest over of all time. And your boy has $25 less in his bank account.
Wow.
No unit shaming.
I mean, no unit shaming, but that is tough. You know what I mean? Because Caitlin Clark, you and I were talking about it, been not having a good season on the road. I think she's like 1 for 31 from 3 on the road this season. So not the best result for your bet there. It's okay. I did bet on the Mercury this morning. So
what's the line on Merc tonight?
Oh, they already played. It was a 10 a.m. game. They were plus 380 on the road against the Lynx because the Lynx have not lost at home, I believe.
No, they haven't.
And they still have not lost at home because the Mercury did not have a good game today. So, yeah.
Without Kalea Copper, without Satu Sabali, right? You're going on the road playing the best team in basketball.
It makes so much sense.
It is what it is. Plus 380 made sense, but the mighty Mercury, they'll go out and they'll win us some money next time, Kevin, because I'll be betting on them. And I'm sad that I didn't see that, but I guess maybe it saved me some money. I don't know. Well, who knows what I would have bet on or not. All I know is the Mercury won me a bunch of money 2 nights ago, and that's all I care about. But they're really what we got going on in Valley sports right now, especially with the All-Star break happening and the Arizona Diamondbacks taking a quick little midsummer classic hiatus. But also, that the Arizona streets, they just never stop. They never stop moving, do they, Kevin? We obviously had Big 12 Media Day last week, came back here. We got a lot of football to talk in lieu to the Arizona football season. But we also have some fun things to get to as well.
A ton of fun stuff. And honestly, this tier maker that we are about to get into here in the not too distant future, I was surprised by how many baseball names were on there. I don't know if you felt the same way, but there was a fair amount of baseball names on there, Damon. And yeah, I don't know. I think you often ask me how I'm doing on these kind of days, but I rarely ask you how you're doing. And we're kind of in the dog days with sports summer. We haven't had Arizona basketball for like 4 months now almost. We haven't had Arizona football for even longer. Diamondbacks baseball, not really coming through for you. Up the Chells, it is Kit Wednesday. That is a title for you. But how are you doing in the dog days of summer, Damon?
I'm living. I'm living, Kevin. I do, as much as it's hot outside and it's kind of unbearable, I do just enjoy the general summer vibes. I like the sun being out. It puts a smile on my face in the morning. And yeah, I mean, I got nothing to complain about. Nothing to complain about.
I'm just waiting for it to cool down a little bit. We're in July.
It is extremely hot, but I'll take that over extremely cold any day of the week.
Hey, that's valid. I cannot blame you on that at all in any way. But yeah, no, I'm ready to talk some tier maker. We did a great what if yesterday. If we want to wrap that up a little bit here for those that might have missed it, we did a top 10 all-time what ifs for the University of Arizona athletics programs across the board. Here was our bottom 5. For that, we had Jaden Delora staying healthy at number 10, Larry Smith not going to USC at number 9, Eric McDonald shot going in the national championship, Jamel Horn and Derek Williams shots potentially falling versus UConn. And what if Candrea never coached softball at all? And then we also had our top 5 for that. Obviously coming in at number 1, Lute Olson, if he was never hired at Arizona. Damon and I don't even have a podcast today. Jay Williams, no call. Brandon Ashley, broken foot. 20-point blown lead to Cal in 1993. And what if Gronk doesn't miss 2009?
Special stuff there. Some of them good, some of them bad, but a lot of crazy what ifs, I would say, in the world of Arizona athletics. And when it comes to Kevin, a lot of, you mentioned a lot of these baseball players that are maybe on the Arizona. We're on the Arizona spectrum, like we're committed to the University of Arizona, and then baseball is a sport where players get drafted out of high school. They get offered big deals. They get offered over slot contracts, and they feel the need to jump at that opportunity and take the most of it. I don't even think this guy was on our list today, but Cole Tucker. I don't think you had Cole Tucker on there, did you?
I did not have Cole Tucker on there.
Cole Tucker, more famous for who he's married to, but famous guy. Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was like Cole Tucker of Vanessa Hudgens fame.
Cole Tucker of Vanessa Hudgens fame, correct? He was committed to the University of Arizona, and that shows you the depth to which we are going here, and how much Arizona Wildcats have. How many what ifs we do have here from a recruiting standpoint. Because a guy who played in the major leagues recently, he was drafted out of Mountain Point High School, and just went ahead and signed. Straight out of high school. So, he was the 24th overall selection, first round pick. And that's typically what happens when in regards to, a lot of these baseball players in particular. But Kevin, we do have a lot of basketball players as well. I feel like that is obviously the most storied program we have on campus. Obviously the most of the professional players are from, the basketball side of things. So because of that, there's a lot of really, really good basketball players that we could talk about here. And of course, there are some guys that maybe even less so were big time NBA players, but they were really, really high recruits and super good college players. So we got a lot to talk about in regards to the biggest what if recruits in Arizona history. I'm fired up to be here on a Wednesday, Kevin.
I am too. It's the middle of the week, and like I said, we are in the dog days of summer, and so I am very excited to get another day behind us, get one day closer to Arizona football, one day closer to Arizona basketball, and call it a day, Damon. You know what I mean? I'm excited for the sports that we love so much to be in competition, because as much as I love doing these rewinds and as much as I love looking back on the past, I'm ready to talk about sports in the now. But should we rewind first? Should we get started with our tier ranker of the greatest what if recruits of all time?
Yeah, for sure. I do want to point out Jay Berg, like he says, Marvin Bagley should have been a Wildcat low key. I think that's an interesting one as well. Oftentimes, Phoenix Hoopers, they come to Arizona pretty much no matter what, the best of the best. They kind of filter out and they go to the University of Arizona, Marvin Bagley being one of the few who probably was, coveted by the University of Arizona, but just didn't end up on campus here. So we didn't put him in the list. I don't really know how close Marvin Bagley was to attending the University of Arizona, but there are some guys that certainly were really close. And as you said, Kevin, without further ado, why don't we go ahead and bring up our list here? Tier maker list. And I'm going to have to pull up a side version here because I cannot see at all.
Yeah, no, I can definitely spearhead the the order in which we do things here, Damon. Bowl is our first name here on the tier maker today. Where should we put Bowl as the first name, the first barometer, should I say, on our tier maker list?
Yeah, let's go ahead and I guess so how did you want to rank this, Kevin? I guess that should be the ground rule of how we start off here. Do you want to make this a, situation where we talk about how impactful they could have been at Arizona? Or did you want to make this more of like, how impactful their tenure at Arizona would have been on the long-term future of this program, like how much we'd rep them? You know what I mean? Because there are certain players on here who maybe would have been better in college, but worse in the pros, or worse in the pros, better in college. So I just want to know how we're going to go about ranking that, in your opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think the parameters should be said. It's pretty important to understand how we're going to be ranking these players, Damon. I think that we should be viewing it through an Arizona lens. I think that we should be viewing it through how would they have impacted the Arizona Wildcats program that they would have been associated with. And I think that would be the best way to go about it. Because honestly, if you get into the stuff of like, how would they have fared at whatever school that was third in their top 10. Let's say Arizona was second and they ended up going to, whatever school. Feels to me, Damon, as though that then we're working in fantasy land and it's hard to really nail down the parameters for that. So I think you focus on Arizona stuff and that's how we should go about this.
All right, let's do it. Let's start off with Bull, who I think was pretty damn impactful in his one season at Oregon. I'm looking at his stats here. Kevin, he averaged 21 points per game, 9.6 rebounds per game, 2.7 blocks on 57, 52, 75 shooting splits. I think that's an A, borderline S tier right off the bat here on this one.
Yeah, no, I actually am with you on that. I think Bull, the prospect that he is, and honestly, imagine the project that Bull could have been at Arizona. You know what I mean? I do think it's an A tier. Because I think there are some other names on this list coming up, maybe the next one, that have a better shout for that S tier, that I think have had better pro careers, have shown that they can impact winning at a higher level than Bull can. Not that he can't. His story is still being written. But, yeah, I think Bull belongs in that A tier, but not quite impactful enough to get into that S tier. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how
I'm
I
with
feel.
you on that. I think it's a good barometer there. And as you mentioned, the next one we have here is Brandon Jennings, who might be the most single notable player on this entire list. Brandon Jennings obviously didn't have the NBA career necessarily that a lot of people envisioned him having. Going to the I believe the Milwaukee Bucks is where he was drafted to. In the 2009 draft, he was the 10th overall pick. He was the number one recruit in the country in his class coming out of high school. He was committed to the University of Arizona, and then I believe he was deemed ineligible because of academic reasons at his high school. So. Unfortunate that Brandon Jennings didn't come to U of A. It was at a time, especially in U of A basketball history, where we were transitioning off of the Lute Olson years and getting these blue chip recruits to kind of bring the program back to elite status was very, very needed. And unfortunately, this was a situation where we thought we did everything we needed to get Brandon Jennings in the building. And then it just ultimately didn't work out. But I think that this is a clear cut S tier for me, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Brandon Jennings deserves to go in the S tier. I think he is one of a couple locks for the S tier. If you look at the names on this list on your screen, I think that Brandon Jennings has the best case for the S tier. This is a guy that averaged 14, 3, and 5 in the pros. And I think that if you're talking about the number one recruit in his class that went on to play a long time at the pro level, there's no doubt that Brandon Jennings would have been a fan favorite for the University of Arizona faithful. And for that, he goes in our S tier.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Next up, Cam Johnson.
Cam Johnson, Phoenix Suns legend, loves the Valley, loves Arizona, loves Sean Miller too, because I don't know if you knew this, Kevin, but I believe Cam Johnson's dad played basketball with Sean Miller at Pitt back in the day. Cam Johnson went to Pitt for his first 3 years. He ultimately transferred and wound up at North Carolina. He won a national championship at North Carolina in 2017, 2018. Very, very good college player. Not an elite college player, I wouldn't say, but one of those guys that helps any team that he's on. He's tall. He's got that length. He's obviously a good personality, has a good mentality, and he's a borderline elite shooter, if not an elite shooter. He shot 45% his last year in college, 34% the year that they won the Natty. But I think Cam Johnson's B tier, maybe C tier. But I wouldn't put him S or A tier because I think he's more of a supplemental player, maybe not the star of your team, but definitely a player that could have wound up at Arizona. And I think a lot of people thought that he was going to wind up at Arizona because of that relationship that Sean Miller and his dad had with one another. But he ended up going to North Carolina. And then Puff Johnson, his younger brother, kind of did the exact same thing.
Puff.
He was like kind of going to commit to Arizona, and it was a foregone conclusion, or he might have been committed to Arizona and then flipped to North Carolina. So the Johnson family, they definitely kept Arizona on the hook there for as much as they could have.
Yeah, no, you bring up Puff Johnson, and I think of him throwing up on the March Madness court, and that's about as far as I get with Puff Johnson. But with Cam Johnson, I think there's an argument to be made that you could put Cam Johnson in the A tier. And now I think the argument would be based on the fact that he brings shooting to the table, size and length to the table. He didn't have he had better numbers than like Carter Bryant did in college. You know what I mean? Like 11 points, 4 boards, almost 2 assists on 45, 40, 81 efficiency numbers. I feel like that is a player that really helps you in March. And I think that is the argument for the A tier. I could compromise with you and put him in the B tier. But I think, I don't know. I think I would argue for him in the A tier, also because of what he would add to the alumni. Like he feels like a prototypical Arizona Wildcat player, like heady, mature, values winning at the highest level, and I think that for me puts him in the A tier. But what do you think about that?
I think we just have to go B tier strictly by, in my opinion, it took him until his 5th year in college to average an amount of points that I would consider you like a star player in college. He averaged 4.5, 4.8, 11.9, 12.4 his first 4 years in college. It wasn't until his graduate transfer year at North Carolina that he averaged 17 points per game. So I just think that he's a little bit more of a role player than a guy that you would put in the A or S tier, because I think that those are somewhat reserved for stars.
Good point. No, that's a good point. And, to your point about the stars thing, Bol did put up dramatically better numbers and dramatically shorter of a time in college. So I'm comfortable with Cam Johnson in the B tier. Moving on to a name that I kind of forgot about in relation to this list when we were putting it together, Greg Maddux.
Yeah, this is a crazy one. Greg Maddux, obviously one of the greatest pitchers in MLB history. Kind of just like the guy when it comes to people talking about how to, win with control, win with command, win with throwing a big pitch arsenal, and not necessarily by overpowering people. Greg Maddux was a 6 foot, 170 pound pitcher, and he pitched for 23 years in Major League Baseball. Kevin, he made his debut in 1986 at 20 years old. He would have played for some pretty damn good Arizona baseball teams in the 80s there. That's obviously a big time when Arizona was bringing home some national championships back in those days. Would have been an unreal Arizona Wildcat to have in our arsenal, right? I think that one of the things that, and I hate to bring this up and do this, but one of the things that our rivals, our disgusting rivals, have over us is that they do unfortunately have a lot of star power when it comes to athletes in their respective leagues. Do they help them win at Arizona State? Absolutely not. No, they do not. But do they help them, I guess, have a heighten their image or of sorts? Like you have Barry Bonds, James Harden, guys like that. Greg Maddux would be our version of Barry Bonds or Reggie Jackson for our baseball program. And we do have Trevor Hoffman, and he is a Hall of Famer. And there is like a big giant mural of him that I actually took a picture of when I was at Petco Park a couple Sundays ago. Take me back. But I do think that like Greg Maddux would be like the big guy that we would be like pumping up if he did attend the University of Arizona.
1,000%. I was gonna say like the reason I think Greg Maddux should go in the S tier is because we were talking about a guy that if he did choose to go to Arizona instead of signing with the Chicago Cubs, he would have literally become one of your greatest alumni across any sport.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that reason, he is a lock for the S tier in my opinion. Yeah, we're talking about the only pitcher in MLB history to go 15 wins or more in 17 straight seasons as well. Like he's historic, and he could have been an Arizona Wildcat, but he signed with the Chicago Cubs instead. But yeah, for me, that's an S tier.
Yeah, I think it has to be an S tier because he's just a Hall of Fame player.
I mean, he should be 1-1, right, over Brandon Jennings?
Probably, yeah. I know Brandon Jennings is like such a, he was such like a almost foundational like version of this exact list that we're doing. Like he's almost like the representative, I feel like, because basketball is king on our campus, and we all know that. But I do just think that the nature of Greg Maddux and how he ended up being, how good of a player he ended up being, probably puts him over the top there. But he got drafted in 1984. I'm trying to figure out exactly when these baseball championships were, because I'm pretty sure we won in 86. So he cost himself a national championship most likely in the process, and maybe could have helped the Wildcats win an extra one. Who knows? But definitely an all-time what if situation. Let's move on here, Kevin.
The Rab Man,
Ivan Rabb.
Yes, sir.
Ivan Rabb was a guy that I think most Arizona Wildcat fans envisioned coming to the U of A. I think it was a big shock when he didn't come to the U of A. But ultimately, he didn't really do all that much at the college level. It wasn't as if it felt like, he was the missing piece on a team necessarily. I think it felt that way when he didn't commit to the University of Arizona. Like people were really upset about it. Ivan Rabb was a high level recruit. Pulling up his recruiting profile here, he was the number 11 overall recruit in the country, 5-star, number 6 in the 247 Sports Composite. And yeah, it just felt like kind of at the last second, Ivan Rabb, like it fell into place for him to go to Cal. I think since then, it's been very, very rumored, Kevin, that Cal kind of dropped a bag on his plate and said, "Here we go." And that was at a time where that wasn't necessarily allowed. I remember
team still did that, even though it wasn't allowed?
Yes.
Insane.
In fact, our team did that. But I would say that I think it kind of, Arizona fans, I think, got scared for the first time when Ivan Rabb announced that he was going to do his commitment, and he was doing it like across the street from Cal's campus.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Ugh, that's a little fishy." And then he ends up going to Cal. He averaged 12.5 his freshman year with 8.5 rebounds. His second year, he averaged 14 and 10.5. Kevin, what would you say? What were you leaning with Ivan Rabb?
B, maybe A, but I think B for the reasoning that spent 2 years in college, did put up really good numbers in his sophomore year, and I think that the production that he did put up in the 2 years he was in college puts him in that A or B range. He doesn't necessarily have the pro success to push him into that upper echelon of like, oh, he's one of your best alumni. You can't wait to talk about how Ivan Rabb went to your school.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not quite in that range, but he did put up 14 and 10.5 on some pretty decent efficiency for what I'm seeing there. But yeah, I think he's an A or B tier. Which one would you put him in yourself, unless you feel differently?
So I'm looking here. The year that he would have been a freshman at our school would have been when the Caleb Tarczewski, Gabe York season, where we were kind of had the last final remnants of those elite back-to-back Elite Eight teams, but without maybe the TJ McConnells, the Nick Johnsons, the Stanley Johnsons, the Aaron Gordons of the world, even the Rondé Hollis Jeffersons. It was more kind of the peripheral pieces of those teams. And you had Alonzo Trier as a freshman. I think Ivan Rabb would have been pretty impactful that freshman year. But here's where I think that he belongs in the C category, Kevin. As I dig a little bit deeper on this, he played power forward. Ivan Rabb was a power forward, right? And I think he would have fit pretty well on that team previously. But if he had come back for that sophomore season, the next year's power forward, a guy by the name of Lauri Markkanen. And I don't think Lauri Markkanen shows up to Arizona's campus and if Ivan Rabb is still in school at Arizona. Maybe Ivan Rabb goes one and done after that first year at Arizona. You never know. He didn't at Cal ultimately. But because we got Lauri Markkanen and because he was just a significantly better player than Ivan Rabb, in my opinion, even though the stats wouldn't necessarily say that is the truth, but I just think that we're talking about different guys here. Come on. I think he's a C category guy. I don't know how much it really changes the history of Arizona basketball if he ends up at U of A. It might even hurt it for reasons I just outlined.
I mean, I think you've swung my opinion from in that A to B range, from that B to C range, and I think I lean with you in the C category for that exact reason. If you do lose an alumni that you are very proud to have in Lauri Markkanen and did help you win some basketball games there. So, yeah, I think Ivan Rabb in the C category makes a lot of sense. Next up, though, Javon Quinterly.
The guy who burned it all to the ground, Javon Quinterly. I think he's D category. What do you? I don't know how you feel about it. He played 5 years in college basketball. He averaged 10 points per game for his career, 3.5 assists. I think he's a decent player. I just don't think that he's really a needle mover. And I know Jaden Bradley has similar averages to that. So and we big up Jaden Bradley all the time, but I just think that they do that in significantly different ways. Javon Quinterly was supposed to be like kind of a pass first, 3-point shooter type of player, in my opinion. And Jaden Bradley is a dog. He's a defensive specialist. He wins with athleticism, and he's a transition, like he's an elite transition player. I think that Javon Quinterly is D category because I find him to be probably one of the least impactful players on this entire list here, Kevin.
I agree. I don't think players like Javon Quinterly are hard to find, and that's with all due respect to him. He's 6'1" guard that can, do a little bit of guard stuff. Like I don't think that he's necessarily a special player. Like nothing about Javon Quinterly necessarily is like, oh, if Arizona didn't get Javon Quinterly, they're missing out on this, that, and that.
He was the SEC tournament MVP one year.
Yeah.
That's a big accomplishment. I think
I'm not saying like he's not good or he's not a valuable player.
He's talking about all good players.
Yes,
here,
but
right?
but I'm not saying I'm saying he's not special. Like he's not someone that if you missed out on Javon Quinterly, you're losing sleep at night as a coach. You're losing sleep at night as a fan. You're not losing sleep at night, right? You go out and get a guy like Jaden Bradley, to your point, where the averages are similar, and that kind of outlines my point of like you can find a Javon Quinterly if you miss out on Javon Quinterly. And so for that reason, in the context of this list, he is a D tier on this list.
We now have a person in every tier category here. I think that this is a good stopping point here to just kind of look at this list that we got so far. We got a lot more names to get to, Kevin, and we'll do that right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast.
And the first thing I want to talk to you guys about during this break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast is our friends over at Circle K. We got some new snacks from our friends at Circle K. These ones are my favorite. They're already open. I've been snacking on them. The pretzel nuggets, the little peanut butter stuffed pretzels. They are absolutely delicious. They also have beef and cheese sticks for those that are into that kind of vibe.
I am into that kind of vibe.
There you go. Circle K is your thirst stop. It's actually America's thirst stop. You can save on gas at Circle K, snacks, water, all your drinks you got there. You can save 25 cents off on fuel when you buy 3 Coca-Cola products. And if you join the Inner Circle, you get 25 cents off on gas for your first 5 fill-ups. And then you get 3 cents off every fill-up after that. And then once you become a graduate of the Inner Circle Academy like me and Damon, you get that 5 cents off per gallon every single time. But the savings don't stop there. 79-cent Polar Pop, 99-cent Froster. Make sure to join the Inner Circle today for free by downloading that Circle K app. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details.
Kevin, you know where we'll be this weekend when it comes to watching the UFC 318 card. No other place than Gila River Resorts and Casinos, because if they have a pay-per-view going on, you know that Gila River Resorts and Casinos is throwing an event for it. I'm going to head up to that BetMGM Sportsbook at Wild Horse Pass, the biggest sportsbook in the state of Arizona. Maybe crack a couple cold ones, maybe do some gambling where you got that paper ticket in your hand, because we all know there's nothing better than walking with that winning paper ticket right up to the cashier and handing it to him and getting cold, hard cash on the other end, Kevin. But that's not all that Gila River Resorts and Casinos has to offer. They got the pool area with the cabanas. You can go hang out outside. It's the summer. It's fun. That's what you want to do. They got concert venues where my parents, who are the biggest concert goers that I know of, think it's an unbelievable venue. And that was told to me off air. You know, they didn't have to say that, but that is the truth. That is how they feel about it, as well as, you know, the live table games and slots that make Gila River Resorts and Casinos the absolute best casino here in the state of Arizona. It's like having Vegas in your backyard. Take a staycation today. Get out of the heat of the summer. Hang out at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, where they have beautiful, pristine air conditioning, Kevin. It's always nice and cool in there, and it always smells great, which is something that you can't get in every single casino. So you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playathila.com for more details. By the way, Kevin, before we hop back into this tier maker, you mentioned the beef and cheese sticks. Are you a beef and cheese stick? Like, how are we doing that? If we were to, and when I say we, I mean you, unravel it, right? And you're going meat first, cheese second, or are you hunking down on both at the exact same time? Like the packaging allows you to. Giving yourself a little bit of meat and cheese at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm like a mix the flavors kind of guy. So I think I would probably bite the beef stick.
Okay.
And then, you know,
supplement it a little bit.
And then side of cheese.
Sure.
I view the cheese as the side and the beef stick as the main course here in this little package from Circle K.
Absolutely. Easy way to get some calories, grab and go. Maybe you work a early morning job. I'll tell you what, if I was working low manual labor, Kevin, no doubt in my mind, I'd be picking up one of those bad boys every morning, just being like, I'm gonna save that guy for about 11 a.m. today.
Circle K would be my spot if I was working. No, I mean, it's already my spot for sure. But I'm saying I would be there literally every day for all my snacks and nutrients.
You know, I always talk about it. My summer I cosplayed as a manual laborer, and I flipped a house for 2.5 weeks essentially. I was at Circle K every morning at 7 a.m. Just picking up all the goods, grabbing a Polar Pop. You know how it is. Circle K. We love Circle K. But Kevin, we also love the tier maker. You know this podcast. And we're going to get right back into it. Who's our next name on this list here?
Our next name is Jalen Tease Tabor.
Tease Tabor, I'm sure a lot of Arizona football fans are familiar with. He committed to the University of Arizona during the Under Armour All-American game. Was a big deal, right? He popped on, committed to the University of Arizona over some big time programs. Was a extremely high level recruit. I believe that he might even be if he did stay at Arizona, he might be the highest rated recruit in Arizona history. He was a top 20 recruit nationally, top 15 if you go by the composite rankings, top 5 cornerback, and he was considered to be going to Alabama until last second, and I think kind of at the hands of Joe Hayden, who I'm sure a lot of people might be familiar with. Joe Hayden, played football for a long time in the NFL, was a big reason that Tease Tabor flipped his commitment. I think he would have been a very impactful player, but he wasn't necessarily as good at the college level or at the pro level as he was at the college level. I think C tier, but what do you feel, Kevin?
See, it depends to me on how he would have really contributed to winning for Arizona football. Like, I think the complicated part with this list is the basketball stuff. I think it's much easier to draw the line between Brandon Jennings' arrival and success on the basketball court. Mm-hmm. It's a much more outsized impact. Would Tabor have been able to really be the difference maker, I'll say, in, whether or not Arizona wins this bowl or that bowl? Maybe, maybe not. I think he belongs in the... Is he Cam Johnson or is he Ivan Rabb? That's my question to you.
I think he's more Ivan Rabb than Cam Johnson, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know how much that would have changed things for the University of Arizona. If I'm looking at Tease Tabor's college stats, he would have attended the university from 14, 15, 16. So actually, I mean, you never know. I mean, that 2014 year was our Fiesta Bowl season. He would have been a true freshman that year. I know, Sal Point legend Cam Denson was a true freshman starting cornerback on that team, and didn't end up being the player that a lot of people thought he was going to be. But I think Tease Tabor probably is the starting cornerback in this scenario on that team. I don't know, man. I don't know. I actually, now that I think about Tease Tabor being added to an already like one of the better Arizona football teams of my lifetime, it makes me almost want to put him up a ranking, because I think that, like the impact of him coming to Arizona would have been different because he would have played for relevant teams rather than playing for irrelevant teams.
Yeah, and I think, again, I mean, not to spoil some of the other ones, but looking at some of the names coming up, I do feel like maybe Tabor is too useful for the C tier. I think B tier might be more fitting for him. And that's kind of where I was going at when I asked you, like, is he more Cam Johnson or is he more Ivan Rabb? In the sense that, like, I think if you add Cam Johnson to any iteration of an Arizona basketball team, he works in some way. You know what I mean? I think he's a good piece for that, and he contributes to winning. But like you outlined in your Ivan Rabb explanation of why he deserves a C tier, if Ivan Rabb ends up at Arizona, maybe you just don't get Lauri Markkanen straight up. It like prohibits you from other things. I think Tabor would only be additive to winning at Arizona in that way. So I do think he probably deserves that B tier over the C tier, especially with some of the names coming up.
I'm with that. I like that line. I like that reasoning and that line of thinking here, Kevin. So why don't we go ahead and put him in the B tier? Next up is Jeff Withey, I believe.
Yes.
Jeff Withey of Kansas fame was pretty good his senior year at Kansas, averaged 13.5 points per game.
Led the country in blocks, or led the conference in blocks.
8.5 rebounds and led the conference in blocks with almost 4 blocks a game. 3.6 the year before that. I mean, he was a good rim protector. Really was his calling card, especially with those block numbers. 2-time All Big 12 defensive team, 2-time Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, consensus All-American in his senior season, and almost came up to the University of Arizona. Right? Do you know the circumstances of which Jeff Withey in Arizona almost happened, Kevin?
To be quite honest with you, no, I did not. There's a lot of names that I was brushing up on this morning. Jeff Withey did not get to the top of that list, but based on just his contributions and such, I do feel like, I mean, honestly, the freshman and sophomore years are pretty much nothing burgers in that way. You know what I mean? I don't think that this is maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like this is a C tier kind of what if recruit. I don't think that if we're talking about like a 4-year guy who took 4 years to really contribute to impactful basketball, is a player that really fits the Arizona standard of winning and elite talent. So I think he's a C tier. Maybe you feel differently.
According to our friends over at the AZ Desert Swarm, he was enrolled at Arizona, but decided to transfer to Kansas after Lute Olson abruptly retired prior to the 2008-2009 season. Went on to be 2-time Big 12 Player of the Year, 2nd-round pick by the Portland Trailblazers in the 2013 draft. I think that he would have been a good college player for this team, probably in the long term, right? Like you mentioned, like he wasn't very impactful as a freshman or sophomore at Kansas, didn't play a whole lot. I think he could have helped this team in the long run, but I think that he either is a C or D category guy just based off of having to wait on that impact.
Yeah. See, my question to you is, he was able to play for 4 years at Kansas. I know he didn't play for very long his freshman and sophomore seasons, but he was able to lead the nation in blocks, put up 3.6 in his junior season. Rim protection can be hard to find. I feel like at the college level, like true rim protection can be hard to find.
Yeah.
He did make it to the pros. I think that is a C tier player. I think that's a C tier what if, in my opinion.
Sounds good. I'm fine with that. I'm looking over at the years in which he would have played his upperclassmen years on our team, and what players might have been like above him in the pecking order. Looks like kind of we're missing a center in his junior season. Like I think Jesse Perry was kind of the de facto center, but he was 6'7", 6'8". That was during that time where and Derek Williams wasn't on the team anymore, but you had D. Will, Solomon Hill, Jamel Horn, Jesse Perry, all on the same team. You could throw all 4 of those guys out there at the same time, Kevin, and you had 4 6'8" like power forwards essentially on the court. But wouldn't have necessarily been the guy up until then. And then you had Caleb Tarczewski come in as a freshman in the 2012-2013 season. I think he would have started both of those years and been pretty impactful for this basketball program. Because of that, I think we put him in the C category.
Yeah, well said. And like I said, like true rim protection can be hard to find. And if you can get like a project big, that once-a-year guy like a Derek Williams does leave the campus, you can usher into that starting role, then I think that, that dictate to C tier. Surprise name on this list.
One I was surprised to see.
Duke basketball coach Jon Scheyer. Almost was an Arizona Wildcat. We actually do have a video of him explaining this here to the ACC after March Madness this year.
Well, yeah, you're taking me back now. That was it feels like a long time ago. They were my final three were Duke, Illinois, and Arizona, and I just love Coach Olson. He was awesome to meet, to be around. I had a great visit there, although the visit was on the heels of Arizona actually playing Illinois in I think Elite Eight game, I think it was. But just love Coach Olson, love the way they played, and ultimately it wasn't about what wasn't right at Arizona, it was about what was right at Duke, and that's just where I felt I belonged and where my heart belonged. But yeah, really respected those guys and loved the time there.
Nice little shout out for Duke here on our on the AZ Wildcats podcast at the end of that video. But
it was courtesy of the ACC network, so I do feel like despite that being my flop there, it wasn't the worst flop that could have flopped.
Kevin,
there, you know what I mean?
closeted Duke fan.
Whoa, that's an accusation that I do not really take that kindly to be quite frank with you. But I did find that video this morning, and it did kind of pique my interest as I was doing some background. Because what could have been, right? Jon Scheyer was quite a good collegiate basketball player, as you and I were outlining this morning, and also like during that clip. Jon Scheyer contributed to winning at Duke a lot. His shooting efficiency was really good. Averaged 12 as a freshman. I'll say almost 20. As a senior, he averaged 18.2.
Mm-hmm.
Very good player for Duke that could do a little bit of everything. Averaged almost 5 assists and 4 boards his senior season. Damon, is he an A tier?
Nah, he's not A tier.
Well, no, hear me out. Because then he becomes an alum, and you're like, the basketball mind is off the charts. He joins the staff later in life with Tommy Lloyd. He never takes the Duke job. Arizona never faces Cooper Flack because he never goes to Duke. And then Arizona might mess around and find out that they're national champions this year because they have the super squad on the staff. Tell me I'm wrong here.
It is a big domino effect where you don't really know how the landscape of college basketball would come to be right now if Jon Scheyer wasn't a Duke Blue Devil, during his collegiate career. He was a consensus All-American his senior year, All ACC freshman of the year, was on the All ACC team as a senior. He was a great player, man. He really was. He was way better than I envisioned him being, and it was way sooner ago than I thought. Like it was like during a time that I definitely could have remembered him, but I didn't. So he was a great player. I think that he goes B category for me. Just because I don't know if he was like that needle moving piece necessarily, especially until his later years, but I do think he was a very good, impactful player for 4 seasons. That first year that he would have been on Arizona, we had low-key a squad, man. I'm not even kidding about this. You had Marcus Williams, who played in the NBA, Chase Budinger, Ivan Radenovich, Mustafa Shakur as his senior, Jawan McClellan, Jordan Hill, Daniel Dillon, Nick Wise was a freshman, Fendi Audubon, who played for the St. Louis Rams, Kevin. I don't know.
Shout out.
I don't know if you remember Fendi Audubon back in the day, but that was kind of a fun team. And then that was last year of Lute Olson. Then you got the Kevin O'Neal years. You never know what happens if Jon Scheyer does come to Arizona, and does he end up transferring out because Lute Olson isn't there anymore? As he mentioned, he loved Lute Olson so much. Probably did have something to do with why he didn't come to U of A. Was the thought process of Lute Olson is probably on the latter years of his career. He might not be here when it's all said and done for when I'm a senior, whereas Coach K was definitely way more in the prime of his career back then. The year after, very very similar team, but Jared Bayless was also on the team. The year after that, still Chase Budinger, Jordan Hill, Nick Wise was the core of the team. He could have fit in very well with that group. And yeah, it would have been Chase Budinger and Jon Scheyer on the wings, man. And that would have been pretty scary duo. But I think B tier is where he belongs.
I think that's fair. Next name on our list is Josh Jackson. This is the name that I know you really wanted on this list. It's a name that should be on this list. But where do you think Josh Jackson should fall?
So it's hard to say, right? Because Josh Jackson was the number one recruit in his class. The number one recruit in his class. That was a class that involved many good basketball players. Ayrton of the PHNX Sun show was telling us off air when we were debating this morning, Kevin, that he was fired up when the Phoenix Suns landed Josh Jackson in the I believe the 2018 NBA draft, and not Jason Tatum, who went one pick before to the Boston Celtics. Josh Jackson was kind of, it seemed like he was kind of between like Kansas, Michigan State, Arizona. It felt like Arizona was leading for a minute there. I was kind of under the impression, I remember as a child thinking that he was going to be attending the University of Arizona. Really fun class too. I mean, Lonzo Ball was number 2, Harry Giles number 3, Markelle Fultz, Frank Jackson, De'Aaron Fox, Dennis Smith Jr., Jason Tatum, Jonathan Isaac, Malik Monk rounds out that top 10. Miles Bridges was number 11, by the way. But I don't know, man. What do you think about it? Because this is one of those ones where it's like he's obviously a flop in the NBA. He's obviously a bust. So I think it kind of derails people's opinions of him a little bit. But he was really good at Kansas. He averaged 16 points per game as a freshman, 7.5 rebounds, 1.7 steals, 1.1 blocks. Supplemented it with 3 assists per game. Like, he had the ball in his hands a lot, I'm sure of. But he was a solid basketball player at Kansas when he was there.
Yeah, I mean, good efficiency too. 50, 78, and 56. Not great from the free throw line, but good efficiency from away from the free throw line. I think that this is a player that, honestly, I know that if you look at the 2016-17 squad, you got PJC, Raul Atkins, Kobe Simmons, Dylan Smith, Kadeem Allen, Lauri Markkanen. You kind of outlined some of these players earlier in the pod as well. Ray Smith is on that pod, or on this roster list as well. There,
I think that I'm not gonna lie. I think he takes this team up to a different level.
And that's kind
I'm
of
looking at this roster right now. That was a team that should have been in the Elite Eight. Everyone remembers us choking against Xavier in that Sweet 16 that year, where we had a 10-point lead, and then Lauri Markkanen might not have touched the ball for the final 5 minutes of that game. I think Josh Jackson, you win that game with Josh Jackson 100,000%. And then, you go into the Elite Eight and you never know what would happen. I think that there's a chance where we're looking at Josh Jackson being the missing piece that could have lifted that team to a potential Final Four run. You look at a roster of, Kadeem Allen, Alonzo Trier, Josh Jackson, Raleigh Alkins, Lauri Markkanen, or Ristich maybe starting instead of a Raleigh Alkins there as the center and move everybody down a spot. But I just think that would have added depth to this roster and an extra added element to this roster that, I think bumps them up to a true contender. For that reason, I think I'm putting him A category.
Yes. I was also going to say this is an A-tier player, mostly because of the fact that this does take that team up to another level. You are kind of, I know you have Lauri Markkanen, but you are kind of missing that other piece, right? And I think if you added Josh Jackson, who was a one and done, went 4th overall in the following draft, I think that does take you up to a new level. So for that, he is in the A tier for me. Lonnie Walker.
Before we hit Lonnie Walker, why don't we go ahead and hit our last break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast, and we'll get back to our tier maker right after.
And before we do that, I want to talk about Pure Edibles because Pure Edibles, like we said the other day, if you're going to a dispensary in the state of Arizona that does not offer Pure Edibles, there's 130 other better dispensaries that do statewide, because Pure Edibles, founded in Arizona, has over 130 dispensaries distributing their products, and they're not covered in, disgusting sugar like some of their competitors. They're full-fledged candy company offering gummies and kicks, which is pretty much like a Starburst kind of vibe there. Their chews, which is a soft candy like caramel, and also their hard candies. If you just miss those hard candies for some reason, I don't know why you think you would. I'm more of a chews or a kicks kind of guy myself, but to each their own. Pure Effects are clearly listed on each tin, so you know exactly what you're getting into with each dose of Pure Edibles. Pure gummies are designed to be ripped or bit in half, making them easily shareable and easy to dial in that exact high that you want. Go find yourself some Pure Edibles products from one of our over 130 dispensaries across the state of Arizona. And like I said, if your dispensary don't offer them, get out of there.
I just asked ChatGPT, Kevin, how many dispensaries were in the state of Arizona. They told me 171.
So if you're in the 41 that don't offer pure edibles, get to the over 130
Find
that do.
yourself a new damn dispensary,
Yes.
fellas. Also, find yourself some new flooring with our friends at Empire today. They are the flooring experts. You guys hear me talk about them almost every single day on this program. I am sitting on some hardwood right now that we got installed from our friends at Empire today. They came into our office, showed us exactly what this hardwood would look like in the studio before we even got it installed, right? Because you know when we're getting a studio set up that we want every single little detail figured out, right? And that's why Empire today, they had their people show up. They used their virtual floor designer. They took a picture of the studio and they showed us exactly what that overlay of this exact hardwood was going to look like before we made a massive purchase that we regretted. This isn't some big box store where this is something that, you know, one of the things that they do, this is what they specialize in. This is what they love. That's why Empire today is the only option for you if you are to find your new flooring, whether that's carpet, tile, hardwood, you name it, man. They got hundreds and hundreds of options, styles, colors, all of the above. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHNX. Yes, you heard that right. $350 discounted with promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/PHNX for full details. We got a few more of these to go. What's up, basketball and football guy? What is up, Edgar? And we are going to move on here in the form of
Lonnie Walker.
Lonnie Walker, who I'm sure people remember if you're old enough, the point guard U days. We had I know this was a little bit before your time, like a tiny bit before your time. It was when I was in high school. There was this account called Point Guard U, and he seemingly had a lot of information. And he would tweet out when recruits were making decisions, right? That like, you know, a guy was going to commit to Arizona before he ended up doing so. Like this guy had the inside knowledge. I think, you know, people have since kind of pontificated that maybe either Damon Stoudemire or Brooke Richardson was his source, because basically ever since Damon Stoudemire left the program to become a head coach elsewhere, ever since Brooke Richardson went to jail, due to the FBI violations and infractions, he lost pretty much all of his information, and then he lost his damn mind in the process. Crazy time in Arizona Wildcats fandom. He predicted, and not really predicted, because this guy would come out and be like, this is happening, said Lonnie Walker was an Arizona Wildcat. A day later, he committed to the University of Miami. Never showed up as an Arizona Wildcat. I think Lonnie Walker was a really good college player. I don't know necessarily, you know, what the difference would have been in this Arizona team if he did end up at Arizona. But it is really just one of the all-time, I would argue, funniest recruitments in Arizona history, because like I said, it was pretty much the fall of that account. Point guard U was like a thing until that exact moment, and then he lost his damn mind and then started arguing with everybody and then fell off.
That was a crazy walk down memory lane with the point guard U stuff.
It was wild, dude.
And I think you outlined it pretty well there. In terms of Lonnie Walker on this tier maker, whatever you want to call it, he averaged 11.5, 2.6, and 2 assists in his 1 year at Miami on 41.5 from the field, 34.6 from 3, and 73 from the line.
Mm-hmm. He would have played with DeAndre Ayton, Alonzo Trier, Dusan Ristich, Raleigh Alkins, Parker Jackson Cartwright, Dylan Smith on that roster if he did come to the University of Arizona.
I do feel like Lonnie Walker makes that team a lot better.
Yeah,
but like
he's a little bit Trier redundant, I think.
Yeah.
Like they kind of play similar positions. They definitely are volume scorers. But that team just had a lot of issues. I think Basketball and Football Guy even might have just said that right now. And yeah, I mean, they were 12th in the final AP poll, which is insane, actually, when you consider that they got blown out by Buffalo in the first round. But I think he's either B or C category. I'm leaning C because 12 points per game is kind of not a lot when you really think about it, and you're comparing him to a lot of these other players here on this list.
Yeah, no, I was thinking C tier for Lonnie Walker, mostly because I was gonna say like he makes that team better, but like how much better does he make that team, right? And for the reasons that you outlined, he is kind of pure redundant, and also like you said yesterday, you could have put any special basketball player on that year's team, and how are they gonna make up 20 points? Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I don't think Lonnie Walker is making up for that, and for that reason, he is in the C tier. In addition to the fact that he had a pretty what's the word I'm looking for? Pedestrian run in the pros as well. So.
Basketball and football guy also makes a good point, as he often does, where he said that if it was a different season, if it was the year prior with that Lauri Markkanen year, as we talked about with Josh Jackson, then it would have been a much bigger miss, because that team felt like it needed just like one more piece to truly be good. Whereas that Arizona team, I have it on pretty good authority. That was my freshman year. I knew some people that were mutuals with some of the bigger basketball players on the team, DeAndre Ayton, Raleigh Alkins, you name them. That team had a lot of chemistry issues, man. That team had a lot of chemistry issues. That team did not, straight up just didn't like each other. There was kind of a three-way kind of power struggle between DeAndre Ayton, Raleigh Alkins, and Alonzo Trier, as it was described to me. And because of that, they almost were like always like kind of friends, but like behind each other's backs were like, that guy sucks. When in reality, like DeAndre Ayton probably should have just been the guy, right? Like everybody should have conceded to him. But also it goes to show his personality, I feel like, as well. The fact that he was in these beefs instead of just being undeniable, where people were just like, yeah, DeAndre Ayton is the number one on this roster. But because of that, I think, yeah, Lonnie Walker belongs in there. Next one is Luka Doncic, I believe, which, like, this one is by far the most off the wall, by far the craziest. He probably was never even considering coming to college in America, but Luka Doncic, straight from the horse's mouth, said, they told me it's fun there.
What do you mean by that?
Arizona.
What do you mean by that, Luka?
I think he's got to be S tier, right? Because Luka is just an MVP caliber player, and in college, you want to talk about that team needed a little bit more, that 2017-18 team.
Luka bit more.
Yeah, how about Luka Doncic? Would that have qualified as a little bit more? So yeah, I think that he's obviously S tier. We don't really need to spend too much time talking about that one.
No, yeah, he's definitely S tier. It changes everything. And honestly, you probably waltz into a national championship if that is the case. He's just that damn special. Michael Kopech is a name on this list, and he is the next name we are going to rank. One of the baseball players on this list that I kind of forgot that Michael Kopech was in this mix there. He was committed to Arizona, but ultimately drafted by the Boston Red Sox in the first round in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to turn down over $1 million, not in 2014. Now he's in the White Sox.
He's on the Dodgers.
Yeah, you're right. He was on the White Sox. Now he's on the Dodgers. And yeah, Michael Kopech. Where are you feeling with this? I know that.
So he was a top 10 prospect in baseball.
Yeah.
Which means that if he did attend U of A, he probably would have been insane. He obviously hasn't worked out in the majors as a lot of people expected him to. People thought he was going to be a starter, and he has since become a relief pitcher, which happens to a lot of the bigger prospects that don't really work out the same way, right? But I don't know. I mean, I think maybe he would have played for U of A in 18, 19, 20, potentially.
Yeah.
If he did attend U of A. Obviously passed our 2016 College World Series, so he wouldn't have been on that team. Actually, maybe he would have, because I'm not factoring in the minors at all.
Yeah, he got selected in 2014.
Ooh, so he would have been on that team.
Yeah.
Might have cost us a national championship. You could make that argument, actually. So I think because of that, we put him in B category, just because of the team in which he would have played for.
Okay, I think you could even make the argument based on the team he would have played for and his longevity in the pros that he could be in the A tier. And he was a top 10 prospect in his class. I don't know. Do you think solidified B tier? Do you think A tier slides in there?
It is part of the reason why I don't say A tier, or why I might push back on that, is because it is baseball.
Yeah.
And it like one individual player is not, it's hard to be super impactful, right? Like,
no, yeah.
That's kind of the name of it. It's like football and baseball are probably the two sports that are like the ultimate team sports, where like I feel like in hockey, like I know that it's you need a good defense in front of you, but I feel like if you have like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on your team, like you're going to be good no matter what, right? Like those guys alone are just going to make your team insane. There's a reason the Oilers have awful goaltenders and make it to the Stanley Cup every year. Whereas like baseball, you need to be like firing on all cylinders. Yeah. But I could see him being an A. So if you want to make that executive decision, you can move him up.
No, I do kind of like how we have it set up now. I think, I made this point earlier in relation to Jalen Tabor. Like, in the individual sports or the sports where you have 5 to 6 players on the playing surface at any given time, the outsized impact of a high-level recruit is felt dramatically more. So I do think that having Michael Kopech in the B tier, and especially because football is one thing, but baseball is its own different beast. You don't know what the hell is going to happen. You could have a team of only the top 50 recruits in the nation, and they might not even make it past the first couple rounds of the College Baseball World Series, just because that is the way that the sport goes sometimes. So yeah, for that reason, I do think it's valid to put him in the B category. Moving on, though,
why don't we hit overtime here on the AZ Wildcats podcast, and then we will move on here.
Ba, 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 ba.
Next one here, I think we could spend not too much time on it. I think that it's similar to the Bowl situation. Nasir Little was awesome in college, and he was a top 5 recruit in his class. And in this hypothetical what-if world that we're living in, I think Bowl and Nasir Little were there's another name on this list here, Kevin, that was not as locked in necessarily on coming to the U of A. Like, he was for sure an option, and we were definitely high on his list. But he wasn't like a lock. Nasir Little and Bowl were considered like Arizona players, almost committed at that point. They both ended up dropping Arizona because of the FBI scandal, which is just like, come on, cool it with the pearl clutching a little bit. You know, they were making money at the schools that they went to. But I think Nasir Little goes right next to Bowl because I think that I'm categorizing these guys all in the exact same, the players that would have played for the same team. I think that team that year stunk. It was an awful team. So you can't just be like, oh, adding one of these guys would have been great. But if you had Bowl, RJ Barrett, and Nasir Little all on one college basketball team, you could have had an absolutely special season.
Hear me out, though. Bowl was a lot more productive in his time at college than Nas Little was.
True.
And I almost feel like you put him at the top of the B tier.
Okay.
Almost, just because Bowl and Josh Jackson are much more skilled basketball players.
Yeah, I'm looking at his stats now. They were a lot lower than I envisioned them being. 9.8 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 0.7 assists, shot 27% from 3, which is pretty despicable. Yeah, I'd put him in the B category. Just because of I'm thinking of this team that he would play for. Put him at the end of the B category. Whatever.
Get back there.
Yeah.
Another Nas.
Another Nas.
Nas Reed.
Nas Reed was almost to U of A?
Correct. Nas Reed, I believe, was almost to the U of A. I was looking it up earlier. Let me refresh my memory on it here. He chose between Arizona and LSU. And this, he played on the same team as Javon Quinterly, and that was kind of the dynamic there. So you almost had Javon Quinterly and Nas Reed, but instead you get neither, and they both end up on the AZ Wildcats podcast in 2025 on the What If ranking week for the What If recruits. They were AAU teammates with, they were AAU teammates with that situation, and they had talked about, obviously playing together, and when Javon had committed to U of A, it became very likely that he ends up there.
But the idea of Nas Reed was like, hey, I'm going to not go to U of A because of this FBI scandal. Why don't I just go to LSU, who is the other biggest culprit that is being talked about in this same FBI scandal? That's wild.
I mean, LSU is going to pay me a bag, but they're not going to get caught doing it. So I think I'm going to go to LSU, and that's just going to be what it is.
But they did get caught. LSU was even probably more in the news than we were, because Will Wade was on phone calls being like, how much we got to pay him?
No, you're right.
How much does he need to get paid?
I forgot about that recording. No, you're right. But yeah, Nas Reed.
He was a good player. 13.6 points per game, 7.2 rebounds. I think C category, I don't know. 2018, 2019, wasn't that our god-awful team?
He put up 13.6, 7.2, and almost an assist on decent efficiency. I mean, pretty good efficiency when you consider.
Ass. That was our Brandon Randolph, Chase Jeter, Brandon Williams, Justin Coleman year. Ira Lee, Alex Barcelo, Dylan Smith. That was maybe the single worst Arizona basketball team I've witnessed in my lifetime since I've been old enough to remember every season.
It feels like a C tier, top end of the C tier kind of guy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm with that. Top end of the C tier for Nas Reed, right there behind Ivan Rabb. Or do you want him above Ivan
That's
Rabb?
fine. That's all right.
Ndube Edie. This
is a tough one because Ndube Edie was an insanely high level recruit. He's still a top 5 recruit rating wise in Arizona basketball history.
That's
Kevin.
Crazy.
He was the number 3 overall recruit in his class. Can you guess the 2 players ahead of him?
What year was it?
2003.
Oh, well, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James.
It wasn't Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade was actually a class.
Oh, that'd be
before
Melo
that,
then. It'd be
but,
Melo then, right?
It was LeBron James number 1, number 2, Luol Deng.
Oh, dang.
Who went to Duke.
Oh, literally dang. But yeah.
Literally dang.
Yeah, literally dang.
Chris Paul was number 9 in that class, by the way, and Mustafa Shakur was the 2nd rated point guard at number 11. Only slightly different caliber players, those two. But Ndube Edie, like, I mean, the fact that he was that high of a recruit, I think leads to like, what is the what if here? But he also did nothing, right? So it's like, then it's hard to really weigh what his impact at Arizona would have been because he didn't do anything in the NBA.
He did put up 13 points in his second year. He put up 13 and 8 with half an assist and half a steal, half a block.
Has anyone played for more teams than Ndube Edie? Are you looking at his Wikipedia page right now?
No, I'm not looking at his Wikipedia
please go look
page.
that up and just give me a live reaction to.
All right, let's see here.
I mean, it might be genuinely the single most amount of teams a player has played for in an entire career.
All right, Minnesota Timberwolves.
By the
Fort
way,
Worth Flyers.
Kind of
Benin,
crazy.
Asharon.
Luol Deng, represents England. I know he's from Africa, I believe, right? But he plays for England at the international level. Yeah, he's from South Sudan. He's been very, very big time in terms of growing the game in South Sudan. But he represented England in like FIBA tournaments. And Ndube Edie is from London. So 2 of the top 3 recruits represented England for basketball. How wild is that? In 2003.
That's kind of insane.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's kind of insane that they're both from the ends there. And I think they're like, I don't know, how does that happen? Like the same year? When's the last time you had one in the top? You know what I mean?
He was raised in Nigeria, I guess, though. So he might have represented the Nigerian national team, but he was born in London, England.
Born in the ends? Where are we putting him on our list, though?
This one is like the most difficult one for me because of reasons that we've outlined. How does he go from averaging 13 and a half and 8 to being out of the NBA?
Yeah.
In his second year at the age of, 19. Oh, because he played 2 games that season.
Oh, well, there goes that, yeah. But C tier, just because it's like the inverse of a Luka Doncic, where like you can take the branches and go anywhere you want, but like, do the branches even like go that far in any direction?
How he could have been insane potentially if Lute Olson got his hands on him. You never know, right? So I think we put him in C tier just because he was such a highly rated recruit, but like the guy didn't do anything. I don't know. Tough one. That's the toughest one, I think, to truly rate. Basketball Football Guy agrees, C tier. What's our next one?
Ray Smith.
Ray Smith is an interesting one as well. Another one of the more interesting ones, in my opinion, on here. One of the only ones that actually attended the University of Arizona on here. But we all know the story with Ray Smith. He was a very high level recruit. He was a 5-star. It was a big deal when he committed to Arizona. 6'7", 185 pounds, out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Number 12 recruit in the country, according to 247 Sports. Number 18 to their composite. I think Ray Smith would have been really, really good, man, if he truly got to play at Arizona. But I think the year that he was gonna really shine and show out for this team, he tore his ACL in the red-blue game, Kevin.
Yeah.
Which is really unfortunate, and then ended up medically retiring, and then after 2 ACL tears in a row, I believe, and then was a manager on the team and still stuck around the team and was a part of the program. But I think Ray Smith would have been insane. Ray Smith, that 16-17 season, he would have, the one that we were talking about with Josh Jackson.
Yeah.
That was the team that he was going to play on after his first ACL tear. I think that he could have been the needle mover that team needed. I'm thinking B or C category for Ray Smith, but I'm leaning B.
I think B, because in the spirit of what if, I think you could, what if he didn't have all, like, what if he was able to stay healthy? And I think if he was, I think this is a B tier or maybe even better contributor.
For sure.
So yeah, I think in that B tier right above T's, I think is good for Ray Smith.
Edgar says seeing him immediately know he tore his knee up and say, I'm done, is literally burned in my brain. Yeah, man,
Ouch.
that was a pretty tough one, I think, as Arizona fans to to bear witness to. But let's move on to this next one here, Kevin. Who do we got?
Rick Rickert, who committed to U of A. Well, not quite. He was at his commitment wearing a U of A hat, but there was some last influences made, and he ends up not committing to Arizona. He chooses Minnesota over Arizona.
Basketball powerhouse.
6'10" forward. He walked into his press conference with an Arizona hat.
He's from Minnesota, I guess.
Correct. But he gave Arizona an oral commitment, so verbal there, and signed. But then he signed the letter of intent for Minnesota. He was supposed to sign that letter of intent at a press conference, but his father came in and told everybody that, hey, a decision has not been made. And all of a sudden, Rick Rickert ends up in Minnesota. So, yeah, it is kind of a what if, considering he all but signed the dotted line to go to Arizona, and it seems like a family member came in and said, you're not going to Tucson. You're staying here in Minnesota with us, potentially. So, yeah.
Where are you leaning with Rick Rickert? Because I'm looking at his stats here, and yeah, 14 and 15 points per game in college is 100% respectable, and there's no question about it, especially in 2001, 2002, the years that he was playing. But also, what is that? What changes if he plays for U of A versus playing at Minnesota? Because Minnesota is a pretty low-tier basketball program. They pretty much are never relevant, pretty much are never winning. On those Minnesota teams, they went 18-13, 9-7 in the Big Ten, and 19-14, 8-8 in the Big Ten. So they were very middling. I think he was taking for sure the most shots on that team. I think his stats look a lot different if he comes to Tucson and plays for the University of Arizona, just with the mouths that have to be fed.
I actually agree with you. Josh Pastner, he did say that during this time as a UA assistant coach, he said, quote, we've had a lot of contact with him throughout the process, and it seemed like he wanted to be a Wildcat from the start. Now that it's all said and done, I think that the family pressure and pressure from his friends pushed him towards going to Minnesota. The Minnesota coach at the time was a man by the name of Dan Monson, and he had said that Lauren Woods, being graduated next year, he was kind of trying to play the playing time card with Rickert, kind of saying that, hey, if you come to Minnesota, this is your team. You're going to get all the playing time that you want.
Yeah.
At Arizona, you're going to have to learn from good players and maybe sit behind them for a while. You don't want to do that. And so, yeah, he didn't end up doing that. But I think that your point is good. Like, how much could his skills have been refined at the U of A if he stayed with what is maybe his heart was telling him to do anyway? I honestly think he's in the C tier. I think he's in like the middle, the high of the C tier, mostly because, like you said, we don't really know how much better he could have been if he got to Arizona. He was decent at Minnesota. But yeah, it's not like we're talking about a guy that really truly is like a damn, what if he went to a serious basketball school? He could be crazy. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. So I think C tier.
That team was pretty stacked too. Jason Gardner, Luke Walton, Channing Frye, Will Bynum. And then the next season, his sophomore season, would have been they were even better with a lot of the exact same players. Add in Andre Iguodala, add in Hassan Adams. Not necessarily all the same position. Channing Frye was the main big man on those teams, but yeah, I don't think that he gets a ton of run to be the guy like he did at Minnesota. And I think he belongs, for me at least, I'd put him in the bottom of the C category.
Let's get him in the bottom there then, behind Lonnie Walker. RJ Barrett, Damon.
I'm putting him next to Bol just because I think that, having those two guys on the same team would have been insane. RJ Barrett was another one. We have a few guys on here now, Kevin. You look at, of course, Brandon Jennings. You look at Josh Jackson, and you look at RJ Barrett. Those guys were all the number one recruit in their class overall, and they all almost came to Arizona. RJ Barrett had officially visited U of A. He was down to his top 5. It was pretty widely rumored that it was like Arizona, Duke, maybe another school or two that was kind of in that mix there to pull in the number 1 overall recruit in the country. But yeah, I mean, I think RJ Barrett at Arizona, especially in this scenario where he comes with Bol, where he comes with Nasir Little, as these what ifs are, I think that, man, he could have been pretty special. He averaged 22 points per game at Duke his 1 year, 7.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. He was dirty in college, man. He might have even been better than Zion. Consensus All-American in his first season.
No, yeah, RJ Barrett was a guy that even during the Zion hype, all the craziness around Zion, you had kind of like a little bit of a dichotomy there of people kind of the diehard, basketball hoop heads being like, Zion Williamson is a freak. He's a generational talent. amazing RJ Barrett is right now. And I think that like RJ Barrett definitely deserves to be in that A tier. I think honestly I might move him above a Bull and a Josh Jackson in my opinion, just because he did what he did at Duke. And I think that you give him a little bit of plus points for that. You know, that's a high acclaimed program, a lot of pressure on him there, and he was able to find success in the pros, make a bunch of money there as well. I think RJ Barrett is in that A tier. I think he kind of almost defines that A tier in my opinion of the guys we have there right now.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Let's keep RJ Barrett in that A tier. Next up is Roy Halladay, who I believe you informed me of yesterday.
Yeah, Roy Halladay was going to go to Arizona and commit there if he did not get drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays, which he did. And then his career played out the way that it did. And then obviously rest in peace to Roy Halladay as well. But where will we put him on our tier maker list, Damon? I do feel like this is minimum B tier guy. Roy Halladay is an incredibly high level pro pitcher. And I think he could have really helped Arizona baseball.
Hall of Famer, man. First ballot.
Really could have helped Arizona baseball there. So I'm honestly leaning S or A tier just because of the Hall of Fame aspect, the pro aspect, the high level of talent there. How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I think we go A tier as well. He's not quite Greg Maddux level of like maybe like on the Mount Rushmore of pitchers, but he is a Hall of Fame first ballot pitcher, 8-time All-Star, 2-time Cy Young winner, 2-time MLB wins leader, won a World Series, I believe, with the Phillies. So yeah, we're gonna keep him there. I think that A category is a good spot for Roy Halladay. And what years would he have been playing? I'm trying to see that real quick because I don't know if those teams would have been any good. I will say that. The 90s was a rough time for Arizona baseball.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would have really changed much about the trajectory of those teams, but
he was drafted in 1995. That was his draft.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he would probably be joining that 95, 96 team, or 96, 97 team, I should say. And then he'd be on
95 team had a losing record, was one of the worst teams in the Pac-12. 96 team wasn't good. 97 team was a little bit better. It was kind of the end of Jerry Kindle's time as head coach of Arizona, who obviously kind of helped build the program to what it was, but it just was somewhat falling off at that point. So, yeah.
Siddiqui Johnson?
Siddiqui Johnson, another one that I'm sure a lot of Arizona fans remember. Siddiqui Johnson was very, very hyped up. He came in the same class as Josiah Turner. He came in the same class as Nick Johnson. And then he kind of just flamed out because of a lot of different circumstances. Right now, I believe he's in prison, Kevin, or maybe he got out of prison. Oh no, he was 2 years into a 4-year sentence in 2017 for armed robbery. Seemed like he was just kind of a head case individual, really, really talented player, and played for teams that could have played for teams that were extremely, extremely good because Nick Johnson was one of the staples of that Elite Eight team, right? Pac-12 Player of the Year that season. If Siddiqui Johnson was valuable, like if he was good, if he helped your team win, Kevin, that adds an 8th man to your 7-man rotation.
Yeah.
That was one of the best teams in the entire country. And I think that's the type of move that really could put a team like that over the top. He didn't do anything in college, so for that reason, I think he almost belongs in the D category, but I do think that there's a world in which Siddiqui Johnson like almost like could have been the needle mover that team needed to like truly get past Wisconsin.
I think Siddiqui Johnson goes in the D category. I do want to bring up an interesting little side note to the armed robbery situation. He is the older half brother of Mo Bamba.
Wow.
And after this armed robbery did take place, and unfortunately Siddiqui Johnson went away for a while, Mo Bamba was quoted as saying, "After my brother went away for a while, Kawhi reached out to me. He just kind of stepped up and played a big brother role for me. He's always been a family friend to us." And apparently Siddiqui Johnson and Kawhi Leonard were boys back in the day. And then Mo Bamba and Kawhi Leonard became best friends as a result of Siddiqui Johnson's armed robbery and jail sentence. So that's kind of a crazy little side note. We are in what if territory here. So crazy little side note there. Getting that from The Score, the article they did with Mo Bamba back in the day. So yeah, Siddiqui Johnson for me is going into the D category.
All right. I think I'm fine with that. Next guy here is Steven Jackson. I almost think that this is an A or an S tier. Steven Jackson played in the NBA for like 14 seasons, averaged 15 points per game over the course of his career, was a NBA champion, played for a million different teams, but The guy was a McDonald's All-American in 1996. Was committed to Arizona, was academically ineligible, which caused him to go to junior college. Then he took part overseas before coming to the NBA. He would have been on that 97 championship team. So it's not as if Arizona didn't win. Maybe they don't even win if he's on that team getting minutes, right? But I just think that definitely, this is an NBA caliber player. This is a guy who would have played on really relevant teams. I think A tier.
I think
Long-time NBA vet, too.
Yeah, I know I said RJ Barrett defines this category, but I almost want to put Steven Jackson at the top of the A tier.
Okay.
For the main reason of like you said, they already had the 97 championship there. They didn't necessarily need a missing piece for Stack to come in and change things. But I do think that he would have been like an all-time like fan favorite kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that into his playing career and into his post-playing career, his podcasting career, whatever you want to call it, I think he would have continued to be a fan favorite in the same way that all Arizona fans love Richard Jefferson, and for that same reason, right? He played a pivotal part on a team that you really cared about, and then went on to represent university everywhere that he talked about his college time. And I feel like Steven Jackson would have done a very similar thing. So for that reason, Steven Jackson falls in the A tier at the very top.
I'm with you. Terrence Ferguson is an interesting one, and I think one that's kind of up in the air. Another McDonald's All-American. Was supposed to be a part of that 2016-2017 team that included Kobe Simmons, Rawle Alkins, and Larry Markkinen. And like we talked about, that team needed probably like one more piece to really push them over the top. Terrence Ferguson was, an extremely highly rated recruit, but he didn't do much when he went to the NBA. I don't know if that factors into your decision-making at all. I think that you could make the argument that things are a lot different for Terrence Ferguson if he does go to Arizona versus if he goes straight to the league or
the Adelaide 36ers.
Yeah. Or played professionally in Australia. That's right. That was during a time where they were doing that. I think he's the bottom of C, maybe. I think he was a really good player. I think he would have helped the team, but I don't know if he's the same needle mover that maybe like a Josh Jackson would have been for that team. You had a guy like Kobe Simmons, who was also a highly rated recruit, but he came off the bench that year. And like, how truly impactful was he at Arizona? I think Terrence Ferguson is C tier for me.
I think he falls in the higher end of the C tier for certain. I think probably right there behind Naz Reid. I think all that was stopping Terrence Ferguson from coming to the U of A was NIL. Seriously, like if in the modern era, Terrence Ferguson never goes to Adelaide, never plays overseas in Australia, because he wouldn't have to worry about taking care of his family. That was like the quote, right, that he was coming out with at the time, is like, if you have this chance to go play overseas and get paid to do it and become a pro 1 year earlier, if this game can be taken away from you at any time, I got to take care of mine. And so for that reason, I think, a very slight near miss on the number 11 pick, or number 11 recruit in his class, Terrence Ferguson, falling in the C tier. Our last two, TJ Leaf and Tyler Dorsey. Let's start with TJ Leaf.
TJ Leaf, Kevin, and hear me out on this. I think we put him in D category. And that's not because he wasn't a really good player, because he was Pac-12 first-team All-American in the one season he played at UCLA. Everyone remembers when he decommitted from Arizona and flipped to UCLA. It was very monumental. He went and played on that Lonzo Ball team. That UCLA team was really good. It's one of the, last bastions of really good UCLA teams that they have had in their, program's rich history, but falling off of a cliff, if we're being completely honest, from a prestige standpoint. The reason, because TJ Leaf decommitting led to Larry Markkinen. They play similar positions. He was probably likely the 4 on that roster. And Larry Markkinen is just better in every stretch of the imagination. So it's not to discount TJ Leaf as a basketball player. It's to kind of just be like, hey, in this what if scenario, we probably are a worse team if TJ Leaf is on Arizona versus Larry Markkinen.
I mean, in the spirit of this tier maker, and again, like you're outlining, like the context, we're not ranking these players based on how good they are or the careers that they did have. We're ranking them on how they would have impacted Arizona in addition to all that other stuff that they were able to accomplish in their career. And when you look at TJ Leaf, yes, fine player, like it was able to contribute at UCLA, but in the what if world, if Arizona gets TJ Leaf,
Mm-hmm.
it's likely a bad thing for the program. And that's, again, not a shot at TJ Leaf, but you were able to get Lauri Markkanen as a butterfly effect of this situation. And yeah, I agree with you. TJ Leaf is a D tier what if recruit, because if they did get him, you don't get Lauri Markkanen, and that's the direct effect of that. I agree with you on that, Damon. TJ Leaf, D tier. Tyler Dorsey, what tier?
Tyler Dorsey was, a player that I think a lot of people envisioned coming to Arizona. Ended up ultimately going to Oregon. Played for a really good Oregon team. Didn't do much in the NBA. Now he plays for Olympiacos, Kevin.
Yep.
Don't know if you're familiar, but
I am.
2 years at Oregon, 13.5, 14.5 points per game on good shooting splits for a guard who shoots a lot of three-pointers, in particular, good shooting splits. Shot 41% from three on 5 attempts a game, which is really solid in college. 4 rebounds, 2 assists a game, a little bit more of a scoring guard. Was Pac-12 all-freshman. I mean, not maybe necessarily the same level of a lot of these guys, and for that, I think he goes probably D or C.
I would put him in the C tier.
Okay.
I think slightly above the people we do have in the D tier. I think there's a little bit of a distinction there.
Okay.
And yeah, this is our tier maker. I think we've done a good job here, Damon. I think we can pat ourselves on the back.
If I was to add Randall Grichuk to this list, where would you put him? Randall Grichuk was drafted in 2009, which means that he would have played for Arizona in, I'm guessing, right? Because 2009, the draft happens during the All-Star break, right? So that means that the 2009 baseball season would have already happened, correct? Which means that it'd be 10, 11, 12, which means Randall Grichuk would have been on the 2012 national championship baseball team as in his final season there, which would have just added already to the best offense in college baseball that year. I don't know, man. I think that could have been cool. I'm not saying that it would have changed a bunch, but I think C category if we put Randall Grichuk in this list.
Yeah, I was gonna say C or B for Randall Grichuk.
Maybe B, yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's compiled a lengthy, successful pro career, and I think that I love Randall Grichuk. I love Randall Grichuk, so I think C or B for Randall Grichuk, and then we also have Abdul Gaddy, who it's kind of interesting that Abdul Gaddy is actually now the director of player development for Washington. Yeah, former alum there.
He would go D category, I think, just because his stats aren't good enough.
Correct. He did play for the OKC Thunder for a little bit there. But yeah.
Would he have been, backup point guard on? I guess he would have been on the team before the back-to-back Elite Eight teams based off his senior year. But that would have been a D category for me. There's a lot more baseball players I'm sure that we're missing here. It's kind of hard to find. I was trying to look up a lot of committed Arizona baseball players because there's so many times that happens, right? Where you're drafted in the first round, you become a stud in the MLB, you were committed to Arizona. But so if we missed any, tell us we're idiots. Get in the comments. Tell us which people that we're so stupid for missing. But that was fun, Kevin. It was a good little exercise.
It was a nice little walk down memory lane of some of the what ifs in Arizona recruiting history. Hopefully, we don't have to add too many names to this list coming soon, because it seems like Tommy Lloyd's killing it. It seems like even Brent Brennan has been killing it this summer. So hopefully we don't got to worry about the what ifs going forward with the recruiting stuff. Honestly, I know that we've thought about this before and we've talked about it for a couple times since football season kicked off about T-Mac and what if you were an Oregon fan, one of the biggest what ifs is what if T-Mac never flipped to Arizona, right?
He'd be their best receiver in their program's history.
Exactly. And I think that is kind of a really cool, interesting butterfly effect thing as well of as an Arizona fan, we understand just how thin the margin is with some of these commitments. You know what I mean? The littlest of variable can be the difference between you having T-Mac and the greatest receiver in your program's history or not. And yeah, that's what I've been thinking about with this list.
Any transfers recently that have maybe considered Arizona that we're forgetting here? I think Ryan Nembhard comes to mind as a guy that I think a lot of people thought Arizona was going to get. Probably means that you don't get Jaden Bradley, so I don't think I really care all that much about that one. I think they're pretty similar caliber players. He might be a slightly better player than Jaden Bradley.
I agree with the slightly better thing, but also I was thinking depending upon how this year plays out, Henry Vasar would be an insane what if, especially in the transfer vein of what if you were able to pay him enough and keep him here in Tucson, how would that have gone? The basketball and football guy wants to know about Cody Williams. Edgar throwing out JT Toppin.
Cody Williams stinks.
JT Toppin, Damon?
Was he almost? I mean, was that really ever an option? I know he went to New Mexico, and I'm sure that we showed some slight interest out of when he was transferring because he was so good there. But I don't really remember that being much of a serious interest there. I'm sure there's some football guys we're missing for sure too. Because we don't have nearly enough football players on that list with the amount of people that play football on a team and whatnot. So again, like I said, we can only do it for so long, but tell us how big of idiots we are for missing, very obvious people. We appreciate everybody for being here, rocking with us. It was a fun show. It was a good time. Of course, you can follow my guy Kevin at KevoPost. That's KEVOPOSTS. You can follow me at Damon Dog, and you can follow our show at PHNX_Wildcats. Drop a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Kevin, anything else before we get out of here?
Nah, I'm honestly, that was a really fun walk down memory lane, like I said, and hopefully we'll be back tomorrow and we can talk a little bit more Arizona Wildcats stuff with all of you. I know it is just the middle of the week, so we got a lot of week left, and I'm excited to talk a lot more Arizona Wildcats stuff with all of you.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for us today on a Wednesday edition of the AZ Wildcats podcast. We will catch you on Thursday at our regularly scheduled 2 p.m. showtime. So make sure that you guys turn all those notifications on and be there or be square. But until then, we will catch you next time. Peace out. Bear down.
And go Cats.
We all silly like the mayor.